Hello, Singapore. Welcome to this side of the house with Andre and Eileen. I'm Andre Lau, NCMP, and with me today I have Eileen, Sufian, and Alia.
Hi.
So I guess this is the first time that everyone's tuning in to this podcast, and Andre and I decided to embark on this journey of podcasting to document our experiences as first-time parliamentarians.
So many awkward pauses.
Please bear with us as we find our bearings, but...
Well, let's kick off then. So, we just thought that for our first episode, it would be best for us to kick off with a bit of a after-action review of our experiences in the general election. It's coming up to 100 days now, and I think as of the time we release this, it will be 100 days since nomination. So what better time to get together as a group of candidates again and reflect on what we took away from the elections and our experiences.
So I guess it's not meant to be a very formal session. I think it's also for us to all take a peek behind the curtains, and while we're all busy campaigning in different parts of Singapore, I hope today that we'll also be hearing some first time, stories from your time on the campaign trails and what it was like for you as first time candidates. So maybe, what's a good way to go about it? Shall we do it chronologically?
Yeah. Why don't we, who got introduced first? I think that would be...
It was Alia and I, we were in the same press conference.
Yes.
So I think that's a good place to start. Because I think that was when we all became known to the Singapore public.
Yes.
So I'm just really curious what your experiences were at the press con. I know I was really nervous and going into it.
We were sitting beside each other,
Yes.
right? So leading up to that, I actually hadn't told a whole lot of people. I told the people who were the most, the ones who needed to know. So basically, my family, so my husband, my siblings, and my dad actually only found out about it 2 days before. I needed him to just, find out closer to the date. And we were keeping everything really close to our chest. So when we were introduced, I had my phone was vibrating. There were many. No, my phone died. But all my WhatsApp, there were people that I hadn't kept in contact with, and people from overseas, and my colleagues, my friends. It was good. A lot of the messages that came were very encouraging, but I think at that point in time, I really wasn't focused on the WhatsApp messages. I think at that point in time, I was just trying to see, okay, how am I being introduced? What kind of impression am I making? What do people expect when they see me, right? That's the first time that they'll see me speak. Yes. So the questions that were coming were also, some were expected, some were not really expected. So I was a bit thrown. But it was a good experience, I think.
Yeah, I think it's the first time that we all sat in front of so many cameras.
Yes.
I remember sitting on the stage and then it was just all pointed.
Clicking,
Do you hear the clicks? Yeah.
And it's almost like I can't even see the reporters' faces. It's just lenses in your eyes, right? At some point.
Exactly. And I think when they opened the floor to questions, I remember thinking please don't ask me. And they didn't. Right? Yeah. I got a question in Mandarin, but I remember it was quite funny because you're like, oh, you prepared this little introduction script, but you don't really know, right? What people would ask.
Yeah, you're quite lucky. So Sylvia was next to me. So she was asking me to answer the next question. You're taking the next question. I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay, we'll do this. Yeah. But for me, I was introduced with Harpreet. So obviously, attention was quite on him. So that takes the pressure a little bit off. A little bit, yeah. But it was still daunting. To introduce yourself to the nation like that. Particularly because I had to speak a little bit of Malay as well.
What was that like? The whole practiced mother tongue speech?
Don't really use it on a daily basis, if you ask me, at work. So when I had to use it formally, I think it was, I wouldn't say a challenge, but I think it was something unusual for me for a while. Yeah.
And only one chance to get it right.
Only one chance.
You only deliver it one time.
Yeah. There's no outtakes for that.
Yeah.
It's not we don't really get much training for these things, right? Yeah. We have a modicum of media training, but it doesn't really prepare you for the real world. And
it cannot.
Yeah.
There is no way that any kind of media training will actually, give you the same kind of training that you have from just experience.
We came out alive, so.
Yeah.
So I guess over the 9 days of the campaign, do you feel like you got better at handling these questions that are, lobbed at you from...
Yeah, 9 days, in any case, the 9 days was really a boot camp, if you ask me.
Yeah.
It was such a grueling
Yeah.
9 days
Exactly.
to get up to speed. Yeah.
Extremely physical.
Physical as well,
right?
yeah.
Not including everything else that came with it, but just the fact that what time do you guys wake up and
Yeah,
go to bed?
exactly. Like
Did we even
4
sleep?
hours
Did you
of
sleep?
sleep.
Did you sleep? Did you not sleep?
Barely slept.
We were like, you come home, right? And then you still have to, because your rally speeches, our rally speeches were all prepared beforehand, but you still have to think about, okay, what kind of questions are going to be asked? How do you want to make it better? And then at the same time, you also have, thankfully we have very, very good volunteers who were planning, they were planning a major part, the schedules at where you would be and all that. Very proper organization that I would never be able to. But you come home and then you still have that in your head. And then you still have like, okay, how do you prepare for this? You've got like a media, a podcast,
Social.
social.
Yeah, when do y'all post? When do y'all post?
Right, just before you sleep.
That's why.
Yeah.
To sleep.
And also because when you're posting, right, then that's when you also you can't help but see the comments or
Yeah.
messages, right? And then it's just before you go to bed, and then everything is coming in, like the good and the bad, and then it's sitting, it's there on your mind as
How
you.
do I respond?
Yeah.
How do I respond now? And it's always now. How do I, respond now before it gets worse? Before it, it just spirals. And I have my kids, and I had laundry. I had laundry.
Specifically your blue blouses or other kinds of laundry?
So I came home, I was like, why is the laundry undone? So yeah, it was grueling, 90s.
Maybe let's take things back a bit. We kind of started with the introduction, right?
Yeah.
But actually before that, there's another like a big moment for all of us, right? Which is like finally making the decision, like the final call, like, okay, am I going to do this or not? Maybe how was everyone's experience like with that, like finally making the decision and then like letting your closest family know? Maybe you can share a little bit.
Well, I mean, for me, it's kind of known. When I had to make the decision, I had to leave my previous employment. So it was alluded to a few times when I was introducing myself. It had to be said. So it was a poignant moment lah. It's either I choose my career or I go for this. But in any case, I think. I, for me, it was like you only live once. If it was to do or make a difference somewhere, I would just go ahead and do it. And I think things will fall into place at the end. So that's how I started to lay the groundwork to explain to my family, my friends.
But that would have been a huge decision, right? Because, we're running for the Workers' Party. Yeah. There is absolutely no guarantee at the end of it that you'll come out with an MP position.
Yeah, nothing.
So it was just
promised positions.
A leap of faith for you.
Completely leap of faith, yeah. And I believe in a higher power, and I do believe that things fell into place. And after, just go all the way fast forward, I am back practicing again. So,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Andre, how about for you?
I think for me, the main thing was really there was a confluence of big events in my life happening at the same time. Had a baby on the way. I had just switched careers, and then. Yeah, this came, right? We can't control the timing of elections because...
Indeed.
Yeah.
But we can guess.
Yeah. So it really was more of a question of like, wow, this is a really inconvenient time in my life, right? Like, do I want to commit to making all of these things at once? And it's not just the impact on myself, but also on my family, right? Yeah, there's a lot of changes and I don't want to be a absent father. So I think that was really the biggest consideration. Like, can I do this and still commit to my family? And when I sat down and looked at everything, and I felt that I could make that commitment to my wife and to my unborn child, then that's why I decided to really just step forward and then no regrets, right? A little bit like YOLO. Once you make the decision, I think just. I wonder if the Gen Zs will think.
Not being ages.
Well, yeah, and then once you commit, then put everything you have into it.
Yeah. I think on that point, what was really going through my mind was also I will never be younger than when I am now, or more energetic, or have less, I would say, responsibilities, because I'm very fortunate in the sense that I don't yet have children, right? My parents are still fairly young and they're working, they're active. So it's like in a good place to run. And I think to Sophian's point about the impact that it could have on your career, I think what made it easier to say yes is also because of basically the price that so many before us have paid for entering into opposition politics, right? It's still not easy, right? But I must say that I do think that the barrier to entry, they have made it more palatable and more manageable. That we have to think about these trade-offs, but at the end of the day, we know why we're doing this, right?
Yeah, actually, I want to pick on that because, like, as Sophia and I are sharing, right, what I've noticed is our considerations were more about like your career. For me, it was family, but we weren't really concerned about like being locked up or censored or cancelled or things like that. So I think really the environment has improved a lot, and it's good that our forebears set the path forward for us, and it's gotten to the point where being an opposition politician is normalized. And I think, but then I was looking around and thinking like, okay, if me stepping forward now keeps the momentum going, and then when
more people will step forward.
next 5 years, like it's exponential, right? We hope, right, that every time we make a little bit of progress, then it's a rolling stone that gathers more moss, right? And then like over time, that little contribution that you make, that one small sacrifice, that really like turbocharges the entire opposition movement.
It's greater than the sum of our parts.
Yeah.
in terms of all of us.
Exactly.
So was anyone operating under any illusions about campaigning? Like it would be a really fun and exciting experience. You guys mentioned like the sheer exhaustion.
The thing is, because the last elections was during 2020, it was like the pandemic, so things were very different. Then if you go back 5 years, it's 2015. We were first-time voters in 2015,
yes.
right? And it's quite different. I wasn't in Singapore then, so it's just kind of experiencing it from afar, right? And I think back then social media wasn't such a big factor and everything. So I almost feel like there's no real like comparison. You can't really anticipate like what will happen on the ground and what it will be like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, you can't really. Okay, did you guys have an idea of what you were going into? Not really,
I think I
right?
had a little bit of an idea. What I didn't expect was the physical toll it took.
Ah.
Honestly, because
How many kg did we all
I
lose?
know,
Oh yeah.
Okay, let's go around.
Yeah.
I lost 3 kg.
I was 6.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I did.
6.
Yeah. So it was because it got to a point where it was we did say it's physically very grueling, and
Yes.
the fact of the matter, it was also very mentally and emotionally draining, right? There'd actually be days when I'll be like, okay, I really have no mood to eat because I'm just thinking about what next, and then on that end, and then on the other hand, I'm thinking, okay, because I'm a mom, right? And I also have the added aspect of making sure that my kids are kind of like, dealing with or preempting what they will see online. Everything is about what you see online now. So I have that weighing on my, on the one hand. And so it was just all these thoughts that were going around my head. So I don't expect that. I didn't expect that. And I think even if 2020 hadn't been what it was, you still wouldn't expect what came, just the sheer intensity of it. And I think maybe the fact that, especially for, for the party, there were like all of us who were introduced as first-time candidates, and all this attention was on us, right? I'm a very private person. I've never had that much. People were like finding out everything. They'd come, they ask questions about your personal life and all that. What you're prepared to share is fine, but you're also thinking about the impression that you're making, and then what are the presuppositions that people have about you, and how you can, let them know that whatever impressions that they have are on point or not on point. Yeah, it's just a lot. It was just.
I think to your point, right? Because we're all first-time candidates and not known to the public, a lot of what the population knew about us was shaped by the media, shaped by different platforms, and many times we don't really have a lot of control over it, because when you're on the ground, you're so absorbed in the walking, the flyering, the knocking on doors, that by the time when you wrap the day and you go back and look, the narrative has really kind of taken a life of its own. Right? And then all you can do is kind of think about, okay, do I want to react to this? Do I let this pass? And how do I move on? So it's not easy. And I think that's also why Andre and I thought it's helpful to start this podcast episode with just how we experience the campaign, right? And who we are as candidates. And how we experienced it.
Yeah.
On that, right, until to this day, people will come up to me and talk about like an incident or episode that happened during the campaign, and I would have no conception of it. Because, no, it's just that when you're so deeply embedded in your own campaign, in your constituency, right? Everything else is noise that you just shut off. And then it's not like really after the election you have time to go and sit down and like go through everything you missed, right? So I have a confession, Eileen. To this day, I have not seen your Mandarin debate.
You can watch the highlight reel. And then speaking of the Mandarin debate, so actually, the debate took place on my birthday, right, which was in the middle of the campaign. And actually, the most important point was when I woke up that morning to prep for the debate, I found that I lost my voice. But I talked so much on the campaign trail that I was like struggling to even eke out a sound at the start of the day. And I was like, oh dear, like the recording was later in the evening. So I actually had to sit up that day and kind of really try all sorts of herbal remedies to bring my voice back. Yeah, and that was really, really tough.
I think the entire East Coast team lost your voice, right? Literally the entire team.
Yeah, JJ lost it by the last rally. He was coughing every 5 seconds. Yeah.
Let's talk rallies, why don't we?
Sure.
Because it was a new experience for all of us. And not just us, right? Even like the likes of James, through Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
They hadn't done a rally
Definitely.
before, so
Definitely.
it was new for them as well.
Yes.
So, first rally, I still remember. I rocked up backstage, and then there's a bunch of you who already arrived, right? And you were all so in the zone.
Yeah.
And then I was trying to take a video for socials, and I just filmed a bunch of you all just stone-faced,
Yeah.
like super
Focus.
hyper-focused on that one thing. And I still remember I was like trying to like get Harpreet's attention, right? He was like in the corner with his headphones on,
yeah.
super in the zone, and I was just like, "Hey, Harpreet, we're on video," and he didn't respond for like 5 seconds. Right? It's just like,
Hey, we all take rallies very seriously.
Yeah. I mean, you come out and then you can't see faces, right? You just see heads.
Because of the floodlights, it was so bright.
Yeah, and there were so many. And then also, like, the rally speeches are where you actually first make an impression, the proper impression that you want people to have of why you're here, you know, what you hope to achieve, and so everybody was in the zone. I felt like, you know, as though he was preparing for a trial.
Yeah.
and I can share this now. I hope I can share this, Harpreet. He had an entire folder, right, with the individual plastic sleeves, and every page was in one sleeve.
Yes.
He was so prepared.
Oh, but I guess I was a bit lucky. I didn't have to speak the first rally. So I was watching you guys doing it. I was like, okay, just take some notes.
Yeah.
What to do, what not to do. I think you were host on the first.
I was MCing.
Let me see. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
So
You think is that more or less nerve-wracking?
I think it was more nerve-wracking because I was told the brief that I was given, right, was that I needed to like hype up the crowd. But obviously the crowd, as we all realized, did not need very much hyping up, right? But I think what was a bit of a struggle for the first one was also it was in this wide open field,
Yeah.
right? And it was very muddy, and we knew people were having trouble accessing the field, and then it became a public safety concern, and I had to keep making these PSAs to people to please take a step to the left and move in so that we can keep the rally going because we were very concerned that it was going to have to get shut down because of all the people that were trying to join us at the rally site.
Yeah.
And then I had to keep. Also, I became this little de facto timekeeper. I had to running to the stage to give people slips of paper. Like the referee with the yellow card.
Did you know that every single one of us ran so over time that the Sengkang team had to cut their speeches in half? Every
were
single one of them.
Yeah, you could see like just them throwing.
So I think Lewis had like a Teochew speech and an English speech. He just gave the Teochew speech.
Which in hindsight was great.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, you know how many things like on the spur of the moment, right, on the stage, right, as you make these changes, and then it turns out to be golden, and then people love it. Yeah.
Like Michael's, we don't want to be told.
You think
He was
off the
also
cuff?
improvising it. It wasn't exactly off the cuff, right, but I definitely saw him. Sorry, Michael. He was definitely like editing it up until he was due to speak. But I think that's why it hit so well because you also had time to process like what you hear in the day. Soak in like the atmospheres and then people's feelings, right? And then to kind of have that come through in your speech. Yeah.
Actually, Sufyan, I thought your first rally speech was very, very good. I wonder if you had like the fact that you could observe what happened on the first rally.
Yeah, I think that helped a lot.
You really think, huh?
So the first one was where
Tampines, is it?
Was
Oh, yeah,
former
Tampines.
Tampines
Tampines
JC,
yeah.
now Temasek JC. So that was where I was from. So I felt wow, I get to coming home. So I was hyped up from that. You see, it's like okay, get to speak where I used to be, schooling, and I saw the 15,000, 20. I don't know how many people there were. It's a lot of
No
people.
idea.
Tampines was.
So I wasn't speaking, right? So I
Yes.
was, from time to time, I was scrolling the internet. Hi, Reddit. And I was following the live thread, and I remember when you went up, and then people were like, "Hey, Abang got power, man."
Yeah, well, I heard from my East Coast team that there was a hashtag Abang Kebe or something that started after that. Yeah.
From time to time with the rallies, right? You will notice over time, like the crowd, as much as you say they don't need to be worked up, I think if your rally speech is a little bit like monotonous or whatever, then the crowd tends to reflect it. And then over time you notice, right, as some of the speakers come out and they're more hypey, like Jackson,
Wow,
they're fiery,
yes,
right?
yes.
And then on the first day, I noticed after Jackson came up, the mood shifted. And then after that, it was on upward trajectory lah. The crowd was responding, people were super hyped up. And then the speakers that went after that also kind of like, it's like a call and response, right?
Yeah,
you feed
yes.
into the crowd also. And then it became really, really powerful.
I was so determined to go out there and just, we were all told like, oh, the mic is loud enough, like don't touch it, just speak into it, no need to
Yeah.
shout, right? But when you go out there and you
How do
feel
you
the crowd
not,
responding
right?
to you, how do you not shout? So by the end, I felt like I was like kind of shouting into the mic, but at the
But
same
not really.
time, not enough of a voice to shout. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of.
But we were also told, okay, this is a rally speech, right? But without having gone through it, without having experienced it, you would just be writing it like a normal speech. Because who writes speeches like,
Yes.
wait for a response? But apparently that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, have this back and forth, which I think some of us did well and some of us didn't really do that
We
well.
learned from it.
But it was an experience, and moving forward, we actually had. I felt like for myself, the rally speeches kind of changed because then I realized, okay, actually, I need the crowd to respond. But it really depended on the people who were speaking before me, and you could just sense it,
Your
right?
opening act, is it?
So when I come in, everybody's hyped up, so everybody's responding with
yes.
your yeses and your nos and whatever.
Yeah.
But they feed, right, the energy, because when you feel that the crowd is responding, your energy levels come up.
Yeah.
And all the exhaustion actually disappears
kind of,
for a while. It actually disappears because everybody's on the same page. Everybody's like, just feeding off everybody's energy, which was very interesting.
Okay.
What's next?
Well, what's next? I mean, we talked about pounding the ground, right?
Yeah.
So actually, I was curious. I'm sure we varied between like going to houses, knocking on doors, and going to kopitiams. And until now, because of all the flyering that we did at the kopitiam, it feels a bit unnatural for me to sit down at the kopitiam to eat. But if I haven't like given everybody a pamphlet to tell them who I am and that I'm a candidate with the Workers' Party.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess on that note, right? What was your maybe something that you really enjoyed like during the campaign? What are some of these moments? Any memorable incidents with residents or with your team, that you'd like to share?
Shall I go first?
Sure.
So I was with the Punggol team, right?
Yes.
And so being around Harpreet and Alexis and Jackson is a whole new world. So people were coming up and telling us, okay, can we get your signatures and whatever? And then we thought, okay, let's ask which part of Punggol they're staying. And they're like, oh no, I'm from UT. Oh, I'm from like Yio Chu Kang.
Bukit Panjang, Bukit Gombak.
Yeah, so we're like, okay. I mean, it's good. It's good to
Yes.
know that we were welcome like by Singaporeans from every part of Singapore. But we wanted to reach out to the Punggol people especially, right? Because those are the people that we wanted to be serving. So that was an experience.
For me, actually very similar. I had that same experience, right, where someone tells you they traveled halfway across Singapore just to come say hi to you, and they will follow your socials, try to figure out where you are, and just like show up. And then it's not always a sure thing, right, that they will be able to catch you because like even for Jalan Kayu, it's small, but like there are a few possible places I could be, and they're just like taking a gamble, and they really really want to come and meet you, and it's really I don't know what's the right word to, like, I'm touched, but also like I think thank you so much for your support, but you should go like learn more about the people contesting in your own constituency, right? Yeah, but I honestly was very very happy that people came down, especially the day after my thing.
Are we calling it the thing?
Like so many people came down from like a far afield just to say it's all right. Like
It's so nice.
we really identify with you and like don't let this affect you too much. And I was really touched.
And I thought you handled it really well. I mean, we just talked about how tough it is to campaign day in, day out and think about the next day, and to have that kind of happen, right? And then to come up front and center and to kind of really own it. I've mad respect for for what you did and how quickly you responded, and I think with a lot of grace. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for saying
He's
that.
got some skin in the game now.
Anything that surprised you on the campaign trail?
Wow, what surprised me on the campaign trail? There are many surprises. Maybe not surprised, but I think the number of you're finally here. Thank you for coming to Tampines. We really got a lot of that. I mean, the three of us contested in What's That for the first time, right?
Yeah.
WP was contesting in.
Yes.
And
Not technically true.
Yeah, not technically true for Jalan Kayu. Oh, okay, right. Just in its current iteration.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that was a pleasant surprise, right? People coming up, making an effort to do a detour to come up to you and say thank you for giving us a choice, right? And I think that was something that really stuck with me. Overall, 9 days, and then you would be crossing the road and people were honking on you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that was
Yeah.
really nice.
Maybe this is a good segue into results.
Yes.
So all four of us weren't elected on polling day itself. How did we feel on that night, that evening?
Well,
Walk us through it.
yeah. Well, I guess for East Coast, WP has been in East Coast for quite a while.
Yes.
It's always been hovering around there. In any case, I think we were really prepared, mentally prepared that this is not something that happens all the time in Singapore electoral cycles. If you make a breakthrough, that's the watershed, right?
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, we were more prepared to lose than to win. But obviously disappointed that we couldn't make any further breakthroughs this round as far as the whole slate was concerned. So I think that was the feeling on that night, and then we had to make a concession speech, which I didn't prepare. Okay, just 3 lines, just come up with something. Okay, yeah. So that was it.
It's quite funny because I actually had prepared both a concession speech and a victory speech. And then when I went up, I think it was caught on camera because I printed double-sided. So on one side it was my victory speech, and the other side was my defeat speech.
Right.
And then I think I had it on the when the photographers. And I remember Reddit was commenting, "Wow, Audrey."
Did you make it out?
Sorry?
Did you manage
I
to
don't
make
think they can make out the words, but they saw the header. Like I
Right.
had printed the header there, like defeat speech.
Well, even though we went into it knowing that it would be an uphill
Yeah.
battle, right? But and dare I say that? But we still go into it with the hope, right?
Yes, of
that
course.
it will be different this time,
Yes.
and that Singaporeans will deliver us as long as we do our part, and then we'll let Singaporeans do their part, right? And so it's kind of a bit bittersweet, I must say. And I would be lying if I said that I was not disappointed, right, by the outcomes of the election. But I do think that it taught us many lessons, I think, and then it gave a lot of. It was nice to see. For me, it was especially nice to see how many Singaporeans were so hopeful, just like we were.
Yeah.
There was this thread of feeling that ran through a lot of the online circles, especially fora where people perhaps a little bit leaning in towards the left or in favor of the opposition. A lot of people felt very, very disappointed, and it's so close, but no concrete gains, right? Like essentially, you could argue it, but essentially the opposition maintained status quo this election, right? Like for better or worse. And there's a thread of people who are very, very disappointed online. And what would you say to them?
Wow.
We had that actually, the next day after the polling day, we had to go on our thank you speeches. Even before going out the lorry, there were a lot of Punggol residents actually coming up to us. And each time they were saying the same thing, which was 5 years, 5 years. And, at that point in time, I was like, okay, let me just get over this first. But you know, that encouragement that you feel when people actually, they detour just to come up, just to tell you, can you not give up, come back in 5 years, you know? You can't, how do you say no to that? I would also be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed by the results. Relief also, because it actually gives us more time. I think a lot of us, you know, the experience will, experience is one thing that will teach us, right? And for the next, hopefully for the next 5 years, for myself, that keeps me going is when people actually, even now, like months later, there are people who actually go, and they don't even come from Punggol. Like, you know, I was walking in Arab Street and somebody came up to me and said, like, can you not give up, you know, for the, for the
It's
next
part of
few years?
normalizing this whole, like, you know, opposition politics is what you can do, right?
Yes, and
People
it was very encouraging because you don't know them. They don't know yet the kind of difference that you can make, but they are hopeful. And so we get encouraged by that hope that they have.
Do you see yourself contesting again in 5 years?
Big question.
Yeah, I don't think it's whether I want to contest. I think it's always a question of if there are better candidates, more experienced candidates, more trained candidates, people that the party feel would be a better fit, whatever that, you know, the environment requires at that point in time.
Is this still what the Singaporean electorate is
Yeah,
looking for,
exactly.
right?
It doesn't have to be the candidates, the same. It doesn't have to be us, you know, because
Maybe
we are
it's you, but in a different constituency.
Yeah, but it's a party, right? So it's a party. It's not just the candidates, it's the party. And I feel like when people say don't give up, I think they're telling the party, don't give up on our constituency, especially for Punggol. Because so many people were saying, finally you're here. I think they were the same for Tampines, right?
I think that lorry ride was it was a very emotional one for me, and I'm sure for all of you here. And I must confess that at some point I was leaking tears at the lorry because you see these people running up to you, right? And say like, try again, like 5 more years, or say like, thank you for even giving us a choice. Oh my god, I'm gonna get teary talking about this, right? But the whole, like, you feel like they feel hurt because we know that the way the current system is set up, right? I mean, we all won 40+% of the votes where we contested, but that's definitely not the ratio we see in Parliament, right? So we have, I think, fellow Singaporeans who also want their voices to be represented nationally, and not just once every 5 years where they have this 9 days to express these views, right? But it's consistent. So I think it's really working towards that keeps many of us going, and not just us as the candidates who contested, but I think our EAs, our volunteers who like kind of walk the ground like with us. And yeah, it's hard to turn your back on what we're all building together. And you ask about what I would say to the people who are disappointed on Reddit. I'll be like, you know, tell people about disappointment. Tell them why you think that, you know, they should give the opposition a chance, why they should learn more about what we stand for, right? And do what they can to talk about it. I think politics doesn't happen once every 5 years. It's in every aspect of our lives.
Exactly.
And we should normalize that, right?
Yeah, and Alia, I think the perspective you shared, I hadn't thought about it that way, but if we zoom out a little bit, our role as opposition politicians is really to make ourselves obsolete. We want to push and forward the opposition cause in Singapore to a point where so many people, so many qualified people feel like they should step up and contribute, that when the next election cycle comes around, like, there's no guarantee that we will be the candidates because there's so much, we have a plethora of options available to us, and the moment we become replaceable, that's actually brilliant for Singapore.
That's great. Yeah, exactly.
Just to add on to that, I mean, since the election, I think we've had meetings with various people joining our outreaches and all that in all the constituencies. And I think the talent that we've seen is very encouraging in any case. Yeah, so hopefully that's the trajectory we're going at.
The challenge is always to keep them engaged for 5 years, you know, and come the next cycle, hope that they have the courage to step up.
But also, I mean, as a female candidate, I think this time round, the fact that there were not so many, but there were quite, like, you know, the number that we managed to fill this time round, almost every female volunteer that I speak to sounds very encouraged by it. Yeah. You know, so it's good. It's good because, you know, we're not actually going to pull ourselves back by saying, okay, I'm a woman, I have this to do and that and all that. So us putting ourselves forward in whatever role, you know, at whatever age, is giving other people who are watching, and our younger ones especially, the view that, you know, it's not impossible. You know, if you want to be part of the change and you want to, you know, bring a change, come and join us.
You can be the voice.
Yeah, you
right?
can be
make
the
a
voice,
difference,
and you don't have to hold yourself back just because you have this and that, whatever other responsibilities. We all do, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like hoping fellow parents, like, you know, mothers, just come and join us. There's so many people who have issues that they want to bring up,
And
right?
who care deeply about these
Yes,
issues.
who care deeply, and you don't actually have to say, you know, let's put it through the party, through somebody else in the party. Just step up.
The more people who step up, right, no matter what minority you are, be it gender or
Yeah.
otherwise, I think the more people step up, the less of a stereotype there will be.
Correct.
Because there'll be people coming from all, you know, stars and stripes,
Yes.
right? We could be doing different things professionally, maybe married, single,
Yeah.
divorced, etc.
Yes.
You know, have a fur kid, have human kids, have a mix of both. Like, I think that's okay, right? But the idea is that these are, it will be more and more reflective of the fabric of Singaporean society. Right? Yeah. So it shouldn't just be, I have to check all of these boxes in order for me to even
Correct.
qualify
Yes.
as a candidate. I feel like the reason why we've all stepped forward is also so that we can help to
doors. Yeah.
open doors and then change that mindset. Yeah.
So many hopeful takeaways from this election after all, right? It's not just about the actual numbers at the end of the day. I think we like to think that we've started a bit of a movement. And hope to see it continue and come through to fruition.
Yeah. Hope to see you guys continuing it.
Maybe we could continue with the hopeful theme.
Yeah.
Any kind of pick 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years in the future for Singapore. What is one hope that you do believe that we will be able to achieve?
Well, I think all of us would agree that why we are doing what we're doing is to foster a more balanced system where we can speak freely the way we are right now. To have, like Eileen was saying, I think not just have the 9 days as the period where we have, full engagement in politics, where we have more of us on this side to be, representing people for 5 years. I think that will be an aspiration that I would like to see the next 5-10 years. Never mind 20 years, 5 years. We should move towards that. I think as a mature society. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it is actually looking at the future generation. I am hoping that our children and our children's children, they will be the ones that will actually make the change, right? We help to move the tide. Maybe the change won't come during our time, during our lifetime even, hopefully during our lifetime. But I am encouraged by what I see in the younger generation. Like those even in the teens now, they're actually coming up to us, on the ground. Oh, I'm sorry. You are in my generation. Like my eldest one is, I think the next generation, the next election, he will actually be of voting age, right? First time voter, and I'm hoping that his generation will be the ones who are, saying, okay, how do we make a change? How do we move things to be better? How do we make our voices heard? And it's great because they are the future, right? I want and I hope that the next generation will be braver than us, that they will not be, put off by things like, what is the impression that people are going to have of me? How is my job scope going to be like? And what? Yes, everybody has concerns, right? But I hope that the future generation will be the ones that will be making the change that we need to see, so that more and more of our voices are heard, because all of us are actually just working for the betterment of Singapore. So that's what I hope.
On that note, actually I share a very similar hope with you, Alia. My hope is that for my daughter, that when she comes of voting age, she will be of a generation of Singaporeans that is living in a society with the institutions and the social structures that will really let them be creative and be bold and explore, and really think that the world is their oyster, right? Because I think Singapore today kind of always operates from a very pragmatic place because we kind of have this existential dread that Singapore is so vulnerable and we're subject to the tides of the world, right? I want to kind of give rise to a generation that isn't always thinking of that, but is really ready to experiment, ready to be bold, and in that way also reinforces Singapore's future because they have such a cosmopolitan and diverse worldview that they really can bring that back to Singapore and write a new Singapore story for themselves.
Yeah, I think same, but in 5 years, to be more, I guess, to take a pragmatic lens in 5 years, my hope is that when people look at candidates that put themselves forward in the GE, right, not just think about, am I unhappy enough with the status quo to vote for them, right? I hope it's about whether looking at candidates as individuals and whether I like what they have to say, their vision aligns with mine, their values, and I want them to represent me and to think about what they can do for you beyond your municipal issues, but also taking these issues in parliament, right? So that's, I think, in 5 years. And maybe to take a more medium-term horizon, I don't yet have children, but it is also, I think I share all of your hopes as well, that there will be a Singapore where we measure, right? We define success differently. It's not just economic indicators. It's extremely important. And this narrative about how we are vulnerable and, we struggle, because we're vulnerable and therefore we have to give up certain things in order to stay relevant in the way we are. I hope that we can kind of break this mindset, right? For the last 60 years, the world has been a turbulent place. We have thrived despite the odds because of the fortitude of the people, and I think we can continue to do that. And with the newer generation, they bring a different perspective to things, right? They have the courage that maybe some of us in the earlier generations before did not yet have, but we're building up to it, and I really hope that we can see that come. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining us today. This is the pilot episode, and we hope to be doing many more. So tune in again next time for This Side of the House with Andre and Lee.
And tell us what you think. We're happy to hear from you, what you would like us to talk about, which other guests you would like to see in future episodes.
Yeah, and we also hope to try and digest what's happening in Parliament in easy and understandable ways for our audience.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne and Alia. All right.